Long time no see. That's so funny. Edward, you got the ball rolling. I was going to say, hello, welcome. And Edward already said Edward's in San Diego. And like I said, he got the ball rolling. And you've met Marty. So if you wouldn't mind, everybody, welcome, obviously. As we kind of get started here, just pop in the chat, like where you find yourself these days, and what language and level or levels you teach. I have the chat set only to me. Sorry, students. No, I'm just kidding. Hold on a second. Gracias, Kelly Sita. I forgot to take them off, like, I forgot to take it off, what do you call it? Like student settings. That's the other thing that students, there we go. Okay, Charisma, can you redo that one? And then, boop, Edward, stick yours in there for San Diego again, if you don't mind.
That just came out all wrong. I'm sorry.
Like, come back. Yeah, my students only can chat with me, and so they're funny. They're like, can we? No, you have no rights. Not that kind of party. Happen. Sorry. Absolutely not. Yay, that's awesome. Yay. Well, this is super fun. So we've got so many familiar, lots of familiar names. Danielle, Graciana. Oh, fun people. Hopefully, obviously everyone got the email okay. Hopefully you also got the code after you submitted the Google form. I had a couple people say it didn't show up, but I've checked in like multiple devices and test subjects. So anyway, hopefully it was there. And my name is Meredith White. I teach Spanish just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And this year we are hybrid. So we've got roomies, Zoomies, everyone in between at the same time simultaneously. And so I asked our state association if I could host some webinars. I know we're all either like can't find enough PD or we're completely PD'd out. Like if I'm on one more Zoom call, whatever. So kind of finding a happy medium has been giving our guests, our presenters, the choice. Do they want it to be, a little bit more formal, a little bit more casual? I like both of those things. So Flag gave me permission. And so here we are. And tonight we have Marisol Padilla. We have Marty. And I've been looking forward to this, like since you said yes, actually. The moment I texted you, I was like, oh, February, it's gonna be so fun. Marty is my high school Spanish teacher. She is the reason that I am a Spanish teacher, and for a number of reasons. And this is our 20-year anniversary, Marty. Did you know that? It's like started Spanish.
I was wondering.
20 years.
I was 20 years. It's so great. I love it. I just, yeah.
It's so weird.
I was thinking about, I still remember, and those of you, if you're here, Meredith, you love Meredith, just like we all do, because she inspires all of us, me included. There'll be times that I'm done, not going to do it anymore. I'm out. And then she'll post something or she'll send something. I'm like, okay, I'll keep going, right?
One more day.
But yeah, I just remember, I've known Meredith. I've just been so blessed to have Meredith in my life all these years, because when you were my student, I was a lot younger and scared and not knowing what I was doing. And, everybody remembers if you're a first year teacher or those first few years, how you're feeling, or if you're a veteran teacher, what those first years are like. They're just awful. Sometimes they're great and then they're awful.
Absolutely.
And then when you start young, where you're kind of the same age, just a few years apart, you make some really great connections. And so sometimes those eyes would just light up. And Meredith talks about it all the time. I was like, oh, where she'd give you that look of like, oh yeah, I got that, tell me more, that's your face. And it's those eyes that would make you as a teacher. And I'm sure all of you guys that are on this call today know that feeling of, you're going to have those bad days where nothing works. You're not connecting, and that's okay. But there'll be that one student that, that looked at you and got it. And that's what kind of like, okay, I'll keep doing it.
We can keep doing that. Yeah,
we can keep doing it.
Maybe that's what's made this hard. I mean, everything's made this hard this year. So that's not like the one thing that's made this hard. But right. I think that's been one of the hardest things this year is, especially in person, that connection of like, like, are we doing this? Are we okay? Not just comprehension, but also just general connection. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's hard. And I know you mentioned at the beginning, I love that you're doing this series. It has been, ever since you started it, I've tried to be at every one unless we had a soccer game. And it just, I tell Edwin, I tell him, it's this shot of the arm that I need every week, because it's not like you said, we're either PD'd out or lost or not sure. But I mean, there's just conversations that you just kind of need to feel validated that it's not just you, right? Whether you're just starting or you've been doing it forever. And it has been just the greatest time. So I thank you. And I'm so great. And I'm honored to be included amongst such amazing people, because I'm thinking, like, you guys create all this awesome stuff, and I'm just, I don't know what to say, but I'm just honored, and I'm really excited. I'm so glad that my ride or die Nancy is on the call, and one of our
Nancy moved.
members,
Didn't Nancy move?
Did. I'm very upset.
Nancy?
I'm very upset about that, but but luckily, thanks to the virtual contact, I'm not, and I got to squeeze her the other day. She came by real quick. I also think that one of the newest members to our team at New Braunfels, Walkeria, should be on the call as well. So I'm really glad that she's here. She was on with us Thursday, and she's taking notes, and we've been exchanging stuff. So yeah, this is just a great, and I sent it out to all of my colleagues at school, because we just need that, that little, shot in the arm is what we used to call it. Every time I'd go to some kind of a training or something, you just get that shot in the arm. When Nancy and the team and we went to Tesla that one time, we got to see you. And that was the coolest thing as a teacher, because, when you're a teacher, your kids are your kids. They are your kids. So when I see this kid, and she's not a kid anymore, she's a grown woman, she's a badass. And this is my kid. She's always going to be my pollito. She's one of my little kids. She's one of my babies. And then to see her walking around like a rock star, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's Mary's wife. I'm like, yes, that's my kid. So
where am I going? What are we doing?
But we all need that shot in the arm. We all need that. Okay, you got it. And what you're going through or whatever's happening, it's happening everywhere. So that's just you just need that.
Well, I tell my students so often. I remember you would just say stuff. So this is, and I teach. I believe really strong. This is my 14th year. Isn't that crazy? I believe really strongly in teaching levels 1 and 2. I only have ever taught levels 1 and 2. I've only ever traveled with levels 1 and 2. And I just believe that our introductory level students need excellent teachers. That's who's usually in the biggest classes. That's who gets the newest, hot off the press teacher who's like, I mean, like I was. I started teaching 2 days after I graduated college. Not great. And so that was a disaster. And I remember, like you said, being like, oh my, I'm basically the same age. I had seniors who were about to age out and like could drink after graduation because they were already 21. And I was like, oh my God, like we could go like have a glass of champagne, like to celebrate, crazy. And I often think of my students, and I tell my students, because I'll see them, like you said, kind of have the look, and especially in novice levels, they'll go like, what was that word you said that one time? And you're like, welcome, like join me on this journey. Because you would always call me esponja. You'd say, oh, esponja, esponja, like just like absorbing words. But I think something that I always take away from our experience, which obviously was changed the trajectory of my life in most ways, was the delight you always showed when I used the language. I think back, and I have to be like really like be careful, because I think the way we're sometimes trained to teach, and sometimes the way that we react to students, if Joe or Edward says like me llamo es Edward, we're like like, and we so badly want to like, but I have to really restrain myself, because I remember you always showed delight when I would use it. I would say like I'd be trying to put together something you said randomly like 2 weeks before, and I heard like, oh, además. Oh, interesting. It's like literally got more in the word, furthermore. Okay. And then like 2 weeks later, I would be like, además. And I'd be like, why do you even know that word? I was like, I don't know. You said it one time. It seems like a word. And I remember like having like,
my esponja.
I know, because like, ooh, give me all the words. So when we talk about our kids with grammar who don't, it's like grammar's become a 4-letter word. No, I mean, I always say you were like my grammar dealer. You would be like, psst, you want conditional? Psst, you
Yeah,
got a
I
future?
got you.
Like,
Yeah, I know.
what you
It's like,
want?
let me
What
show
you
you
want?
this. Come over here and I'll show you.
Right.
And that was hard for me because, as I start to learn all these great ideas that you guys have, I'm like,
Mhm.
and I've talked about this with Nancy and Walkiria, we were talking about how, but I love my grammar, and
Love.
I used to
Yeah.
love to, and not that I'm like a grammarian, like perfect, but
Mm-mm.
I liked to find ways to incorporate it because for me, and I know we talked about this a lot last week with alignment, right?
Right.
And so how you want to get them ready, because I taught everything. I think, I mean, I had you for Spanish 1 and Spanish 2.
Hmm.
And I knew back then that I had to get you ready for Senor Braun,
Hmm.
and I knew that it was like, and then Senor Braun was not going to be happy if I sent him students that were not prepared, and so
Right.
that was just something me, and I
Right.
didn't want to send my babies and not be prepared. And
Right.
that's something that I remember back from when I was in high school. I
Hmm.
remember in English, maybe my junior English teacher saying, "Oh, Miss Tucker's not going, you're not going to be ready. You have to be ready." And so that just kind of that idea of, teamwork of, I got to get you ready,
Yep.
or at least, and so anyway, that's just,
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought,
Well,
but
and
yeah. And so I wanted to make sure that, okay, you're going to go to Senor Ron and I better introduce you to this
Mm.
or else,
Yeah. And so many times that like, oh, you're going to Senor Brunt, you guys were very good friends. And
Yes.
so sometimes that's a combative thing of like, oh, get ready. Ms. Barajas is not gonna be here for this nonsense. And it's like some kind of undermining thing of like, you're not gonna, or we
Hmm.
get scared and we're like, you're not gonna have my name attached to you. Absolutely not. Like when you're
That's
walking into
right.
level 4 going,
Hmm.
hola, buenos
Hmm.
dias, mia, like
Exactly.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. But
Yeah. And
but
so,
your
and
your
that's when,
rapport was
yeah,
good. Hmm.
and we like, and we talked about it last week too, about having your core, and you have those people that, the people that do care about
Mm,
the alignment and the trajectory of it. And
right.
so, yeah, and the whole not, and to be able to say, I know that I can say this year for my kids that are in 2, I was like, okay, you guys that have barajas, I know she taught you this, right? I know,
Hmm.
and they're like, oh yeah, that's right, and so that camaraderie
Hmm.
and knowing that, that we got you,
That's so
so.
true too. It's spinning that script that happens, that really toxic
Hmm.
thing that happens of not just like, oh, who did you have last year? But it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I know who you had and I know
yeah,
they have it together. Even if that person had a terrible year or whatever, you're like,
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
matter. Doesn't
yeah.
matter. Like it's a united
Well,
front.
yeah, and that's a universal thing that kids are always going to say. We didn't learn that. We didn't do anything. And I
100%.
learned early on, and I think that it finally like clicked for me because when I was younger and probably a lot, and I know way more immature, I would get very frustrated
Mm,
when kids would not come prepared, and I would get very, frustrated. And because I was younger and I was pretty immature and didn't really get it,
mm,
I would get really angry because it would make me angry because I worked so hard to, but now that I'm older, I'm able to separate that and understand and know. I think that one thing that kind of snapped for me one year was one of my best students. She's a non-native speaker, and she had maybe had not the best experience in level 3 at junior high. And in Texas, if you take a high school credit course in junior high, you can retake it once you get to high school. So she
mm,
decided to retake it because she just didn't feel like she got a good foundation in junior high
right.
level, whatever. And then even in the 9th grade, she didn't have the best experience. But but she, because she cared and wanted to learn it for real, she took what was presented to her and was able to apply it. So then I learned really quickly is to tell kids, even if you weren't taught this and you didn't learn it, I know it was presented to you, maybe not in the best way or the way you wanted it, but it was presented to you. If it wasn't a bunch of worksheets or whatever, but if you really cared, you would have
Mhm.
paid attention. If you took advantage of the fact that, okay, you could blow it off and not do anything, that's on you.
That's on you.
So,
Right.
and so like decide now, suck
Mhm.
it up. Are you going to work to catch up and let's roll with it? Or are you going to, follow that crutch for the rest? And
Yeah.
so that's what I've learned to say, like, I know it was presented to you. Because then
Mhm.
that way, even if you disagree with how the previous teacher did their deal, it was presented to them.
Mhm.
And then they need to decide, okay, step it up or what you're going to do,
Right.
So,
Right. Well, I think we don't put the onus enough on the students a lot of times, which it
mhm.
sounds like like you said, through your experience, same. When I was like just starting, whatever, I took so many things personally. It was like, and now
Yes.
I could see how this
Yes.
experience, if you let it get to you, would be like, none of them were doing anything. Suddenly you start like talking
Yeah.
yourself into that it's your
Yeah.
fault or something. But the onus back on the students, like you said, oh, okay, you had Mr. So and so or
Mhm.
Ms. So and so for level 1. You got that easy 95. I love that for you. However,
Mhm.
like, you
Right.
also know that you didn't do anything and you loved that experience was a piece of cake. Or like Kelly said, Kelly Ferguson said, like, they'll have her the next year and go like, no, we didn't do this. And she's like, no, dude, you were in my class. I know we
Yeah,
did
we
this.
did it.
I was
Yeah.
there. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, it's the narrative tale as old
Yeah.
as time of like,
Yeah.
we didn't use any
Mhm.
Latin last year. And they're coming into like
Mhm.
Latin 4. Yes, you did.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
you
did.
did. Like,
Mhm.
what
Well, and it's funny
talking
because
about?
now I just kind of had a flashback that I remember when I first started teaching. Um, Edwin used to teach, he teach the higher levels, but he also used to teach level 1.
Mm,
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, who he always took it to a whole nother level. And so then I get kids in level 2 or
mm,
2, back then it was 2 per AP or whatever.
right. Yeah, that's right.
And if I wasn't like as sharp as he was, and then so on the other end of the spectrum,
Right.
the really bright kids that thrived and loved and just fed off of his, the
Mm,
way he taught in level 1,
right.
because it was always like, bring it,
He's
right?
so intense.
Yeah. And so then if I wasn't intense like that. I mean,
Right.
I was intense
No.
because I cared about, and I was excited. It's like, let's dance, and like, blah. And they're looking, the really smart kids are looking at you like, this lady is crazy,
Right. Like, are you
And
for real?
no, like, I'm smart. I'm super smart. I'm like, way up here. And so then I had to step up
Mm,
my game because I had to acknowledge, and so then there was that fear for me of, okay, these kids had bronze for 1, and they're used to like bring it, and
right.
I better step my game up. And that's one thing that as a heritage speaker,
Mm,
you have to. It's one of the things that I always used to say that I'm harder on my heritage and native speakers. I am, and I still am, because I tell them straight up, it's like, you have such an advantage. You haven't done anything to impress me. I
mm,
hadn't done anything to impress. I didn't think that I'd done anything until I started to. Okay, I would literally sit in Bron's classes and watch him give notes and have him watch him explain, the history of the language, or this is the
right.
reason why, or um, because I wanted to be able to follow through, like follow where he started.
Hmm.
And so I knew that the kids that had him for level 1 were coming, fired up, and I needed
Right.
to be at that level too. And so just finding that balance, and then you're going to have the kids that are just barely hanging on, but
Mm,
that true alignment. And when you find that true alignment, oh, it's the greatest.
yeah.
And
You
even
reminding me of how intense Braun was. I remember
he
like,
still is. Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
and having that experience a lot of our kids have where it's like, oh, I've got Dr. Purdy Brown, like I love him so much. And then they go to somebody else after a year or 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
especially, and so I had you for 2 years and then I went to him and he didn't have like the scary reading glasses yet. I probably would have like passed out in my chair if he'd had like scary reading glasses on the, oh, and I remember the first day after like summer break, it was like literally around the room style. Like, what do you call that?
Uh-huh.
Around the world. It was like around the
Uh-huh.
world, but it wasn't a game.
Yeah.
And it was like clipboard, like, ¿qué hiciste este verano?
Mm-hmm.
¿Qué hiciste tú este verano? And I was like, oh God, I don't even know what I did. I like, and for those of you who aren't
Make
Spanish
it up.
teachers, like, what'd you do over the summer? And I remember I was like, pues, and like super straight face. Like
Yep.
I was telling Marty before we jumped on, like, I remember when like his son was born and he was just like gone a couple days back, casual, straight face. And we're like, senor, like, ¿qué pasó? Where,
Yeah.
donde estabas? And he was like, none of your business, whatever. And then mentioned like baby. And we were like, baby? Like you had a baby over the weekend? Like, what are you talking about? Like, he was so private and so intense, but it was immensely helpful as a student. Please don't, if he walks in, please don't tell him I said that. I will die a little bit. Like, it was immensely helpful as a student. I remember you would take writing and you might have been totally faking it because it probably wasn't great, but like, but it helped my morale. So thank you. After we would do a writing, you'd be like peeking once we took it, you'd be like, ooh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. Keep doing that. And those little feedback things that we don't think about. And I remember sometimes you'd run them next door and you'd be like,
Yeah.
hold on, I got to go shift your bra on. And we were like, ooh, like,
Oh.
send you over on, like, not because you all weren't equals, but like you said, it was just like a different personality. And you'd come back and you were like, he said it was very impressive. Now you could have gone to the bathroom or like gone and gotten like a Coke or something.
No, I did.
But I was like,
well, because
it's impressive.
and that was me, the rookie,
Right.
showing them, look at what my kids are doing. Because
Mm,
I started in the fall of 1997, and I was the only female in that department.
that's
And
right.
yeah, I was the only. Well, there was a female. The French teacher was a female, but
That's
I
right.
was the only
Right.
female in the Spanish department.
That's right.
And it was a very tiny department. It was only, I think, Mr. Espinosa, Mr. Valdez, and Edwin, and myself, and
Mm,
it was basically
oof,
sink or swim, rookie.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I literally
I'm in
had, and I had to prove myself. And
there.
so, the Virgo in me is like, well, I will prove myself. See? And luckily, my
Well, for
mom,
you.
I'm like Meredith, where I come from a family of teachers and educators. And so, um,
Mhm.
I'm like, I got my mommy,
Right.
my mom teaches at Judson, and we'll figure it out.
And we'll figure it
I
out.
still remember like semester exam time. It was before we had any kind of common assessments or, collaboration or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do this.
Mhm.
But I had to prove myself. So there was that part of me that I wanted to prove myself to these guys that, I could do this. So it was
Right.
a lot of sweat and tears, but yeah. And then we
Yeah.
ended up being, a great team for many, many years, because that was the plan. It's like, okay, I knew what had to go, what had the kids needed to know to go to him. And so yeah.
I'm remembering that about your mom too. And I remember meeting her and like
Mm-hmm.
remembering she was also a Spanish teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember again showing delight. You were in the trailer, the learning cottage, the portable, learning
During
on wheels,
construction, I was in a portable for a while, the learning cottage.
like out past the library.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming out there, she had stopped by or something. And so she was in there. I had like gotten all the way to my car, forgotten like a sport bag or something, and then
Mm-hmm.
come
Mm-hmm.
back. And I remember we had just started Preterite, and I had gotten to my car and was like, oh, come on. Like, seriously? Oh, I had to like walk all the way back, whatever. Got in. And like in the meantime, your mom had arrived. And I was like, oh, La Mama de la Senorita, and she was like, like same, like totally like showed delight. And I remember I was
Yes.
trying to tell you what had happened in
You forgot your
Spanish. I
bag.
was like, right. I was like, yo fui, and then I was like, and then I just remember saying, y yo dije caca, because I had gotten in my car and totally said like the S word out
Yes.
loud, as 17-year-olds do. And your mom was like, oh my God, and like laughed out loud. And then I was like, I gotta go. Like, whatever.
You communicated. That was like, that's what,
Right.
like, that's the whole thing is about with kids, like you're saying, is to show that delight. It doesn't have to be perfect, because then that's what's going to hook them.
Yeah.
And I try to communicate that with the kids all the time. I tell them my English isn't perfect, my Spanish isn't perfect. I look up words every single day, right? And so, yeah, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's making me think too, your mom, and then knowing like Tio Bob was an
Mm-hmm.
administrator. You come over the
Someone
announcers and
mentioned
be like,
that in the
oh,
comments.
Tio Bob.
Tio
Like
Bob.
never to his face. Don't call him Tio Bob to his face. Tio Bob was great. But thinking of
Yeah.
support networks, how has like being in that department, starting young, having those family members, have you seen support evolve for you over the last 24, 25 years?
Yeah, that's the one thing that's a great question, because that's one thing that I wrote down earlier, as I was trying to figure out things I wanted to share. And that's key, is when you have support from different administrators. I was very fortunate. You're right. I was very fortunate to be able to start at a district where I, went to school there. I worked for the district while I was in college. So I was very, very lucky. And then just having administrators, I still think back, Edwin and I were kind of thinking that, goodness, Edwin started the AP program at New Braunfels.
It's crazy.
And from that beginning, our administrator at the time, Mr. Akinelli, was like just gung ho. She was just backing everything we did. So we've been really lucky at New Braunfels that we have great support from our admins. But I think it's also because we really work hard to produce, great results.
Right.
And so
Right.
we make them look good, So
Hmm.
those of us in the team that work
Hmm.
hard, I can tell you, Barajas, Nancy, she had 100% passed the AP exam her
Holy crap.
entire career at New Braunfels High School. She's
Sheesh.
just fabulous. Yeah, she's amazing.
God.
And she's
Goals.
kind of like, I loved it because she's a lot like Braun. Where like she's like, come on,
Mm,
let's go, And but she would make them so ready. The kids that I have now, because she left me for Katie, but I'm still bitter about that. But the
I'm
kids
fine.
that I have now in literature, I mean,
Mm,
they said it the other day. They said, even though we got quarantined back in March,
mm.
Barajas got us. Had us practice so much in the fall that we were ready for the test, and we were good with it.
Wow.
And we're in other compared to other classes, other AP classes, they weren't. But just having that, because so teachers like Nancy that made the district look good, and
Mm,
when you have those high scores, it makes them look good. Because a lot of times, I don't know how it is for those of you that are on the call, but foreign language or world language, we're kind of like the stepchild, or the fifth core, we call it in Texas.
mm.
In Texas, you have to have 2 years to graduate, right? And so of a world language. So it's kind of a core,
Mm.
but we don't really get the importance of the other cores.
Right.
So
Right.
so we're kind of, but we always make them. We work hard to do really well, and it's not just because we're in Texas and we have a lot of native or heritage speakers. A
Mhm.
lot of times, some of our biggest success stories, some of our highest scores are our non-native speakers.
Woo-hoo.
So it's just a really awesome thing. But so we've been lucky that we have awesome support. Our current Lotte coordinator has always been very supportive of us. She, we started having common assessments. I don't know if y'all do that at
Yeah.
your school too, but we have what we call our little district level assessments every grading period. And then our coordinator, she makes us, we gather together and look at the data and see, okay, what skills do y'all need to work on?
Right.
And that didn't used to happen back in the day. It's 24 years later,
Right.
that never happened, where everybody's kind of assessing and doing things their own way. And now, you have to make sure that you're hitting all those modes and doing those things. So
Mhm.
that's, for me, is a great thing for us, because I've seen some growth
Yeah.
in that, and the support. Our current principal, his daughter is a product of what they call like Spanish immersion. Those
Mm.
kids that
Yeah.
started from kindergarten or first grade. So I'm hoping he's our new principal, and I'm hoping that he really is going to be a good support system for our program. So we'll see.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and also just like, like you said, there's so many moving pieces, and I feel like I always, obviously, I think we teach the best content. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, well, world language is the best, but I think we for sure have the most complex content in a lot of ways. And so, like, in terms of, you've got like teaching style, whatever somebody,
Mhm.
and then you've got your own language experience, and then you've got like
Mhm.
study abroad experience or lack thereof, or if you,
Right.
and then whatever the line is that people feed you. If you teach Latin, it's like, oh, who are you going to talk to?
Right.
The Pope? If you teach Spanish, it's like, well, they need to learn English, and you're getting all these weird, like, political, I mean, like, all of a sudden people's weird neuroses come like out of the woodwork. And I was listening to a Brene Brown podcast the other day, and she was talking about, because she's awesome, and she was talking about, like, in her company, when they would say, do you feel, well, Kyria, do you feel like disconnected? Luz, do you feel disconnected? And people would say, oh yeah, I feel disconnected, when, like, either from the team or from the work or whenever. And when she replaced that word with lonely, that people's answers became like more heartfelt and like more intimate, a little bit of like, do you feel lonely? And I find teaching in a lot of ways to be lonely, and I find teaching language in a lot of ways to be lonely. And like you said, you like, mentioning like support for your program and all these kind of things. The best advocacy is a great lesson plan. We can't be terrible, mean, whatever. I mean, we can, but we're going to run our program into the ground. And like my department chair says, she's like, I teach French. They can't hate me. I can't not take late work, or else we're not going to have the French. Like that's just chemistry is going to be around. Biology is going to be around. AP, whatever is going to be around. But our content is so personal, and like personal for the teacher, personal for the student, plus you're like doing it. And so, however you feel about your ability to do that or not, there's just like so much happening. I don't know if you have found that, or again, like in the evolution of your support, like the evolution of your, I don't know, feeling connected or not feeling. Oh, the dog's barking. I told you he would. I think he's barking at my husband, who once again had one job. He had one job. Is Braun walking in right now?
No, that's totally okay, because I had to mute myself because my Roomba just decided it was going to go on. And so I'm like, oh my God.
Like,
no, we're good.
Are we vacuuming now?
And
Right.
so
All of a sudden Major's like, somebody's home. I'm like, he's been home. And also, he just tried to call a minute ago, and I was like, reject. Like, love you, but no.
Don't leave
I
here.
can't. Amazing. Braun, where are you? Edwin, get in here. It's like a Roomba, dogs busting in the door, whatever. But I don't know if you felt that same thing, like loneliness during different periods. I think especially this period right now.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times too, and I'm sure a lot of people feel it, because you are a department and a subject that's not considered the core, and I remember Theo Bob, my administrator uncle, who told me, he's like, Maud, for most administrators, it's just not on their radar, because it's not how they're graded. It's not how they're, and every state's different, but it's not. And I'm like, but gosh, we're doing just these amazing things.
Right.
We're taking these kids and taking them, our non-native speakers are taking it to a whole nother level. These kids are going on to study and do great things with their language. And our native speakers, we're taking them from not being in honors courses and being in an AP course and getting these scores and introduce them to these great other kids. And he's like, yeah, and it's great, but it's just not on their radar. And a lot of times too, I think, I don't know about y'all, but I feel that many times the other departments don't appreciate or understand the level of what we do, and that kind of stinks, because they don't appreciate what we do. They think that, oh, well, in Texas a lot we get, well, of course, you've got all these native speakers. Of course, you're going to have great AP scores. And I'm going, you don't even know what this test is about. And you don't even know who my kids are. And because I can tell you straight up that the AP language exam Spanish is way harder than the AP English exam, because I'm thinking, do you have to speak? Do your kids have to speak? Do your kids have to, present a 2-minute cultural comparison in another language? And so there is that kind of, there's just, especially in Texas, we get a lot of that of, well, of course, and Ed Braun used to get it all the time. He used to get it from the history teachers. Well, of course, your scores are the best because you have all these
that's so
speakers.
annoying.
And I'm going, are you kidding me? You have no idea. So yeah, there is a lot of that. And but
You're reminding me that I scored absolutely lower on the AP English. I'm thinking, I was like, what did I get on the Spanish? Totally higher than what I got on the AP English. I totally forgot about that. I never made that connection. I'm like,
But and now, because we have a lot of, I don't know, every district's different, but we have a lot of our dual language kiddos that have been in language, or, for example, right now, those of you that are on the call, if you teach AP literature, you know that class is intense. In my opinion, it's the equivalent of a master's program. It is tough stuff. And I have sophomores. They're sophomores. They're babies, They took AP language as freshmen, which is doable. But as a sophomore, to try to do AP Spanish literature, there's topics, the poor babies, they're crickets when you try to have some of these conversations. They're like,
beauty and aesthetics,
don't know.
Anybody? Beauty and aesthetics.
Yeah.
No.
So it's just, So, but if you find that connection, and one thing I've tried to do is, and our beloved Lisa J, who is an icon in herself of English at
Yeah.
our district. So if you make those connections, one thing I could say is make those connections with your English teachers. Okay, so think
Mhm.
about how, because a lot of times, no matter what state you're in, your English teachers are trying to get their students to pass whatever. In Texas it's the STAR or
Right.
EOC or whatever it is in your state, and try to make that connection with those language teachers in English and say, how
Mhm.
can I support you? Right? What can I do in my Spanish class?
Mhm.
What is it, for example, in Texas, the sophomores have to write a persuasive essay. Ooh, So in AP language, that's what we do. And in AP language, it's much more intense than what the little sophomores have to do. They just have to go on like what they know, where our kids have to actually bring in sources.
Right.
And so what I think that if you make those connections or try to make those connections,
Mm.
because you know how it is with teachers, some are open to working
Mhm.
together and some are not.
Mhm.
But I think the ones
Oh.
that are open, yeah. And if you make that connection with other departments,
Mhm.
because you're like, dude, I'm just trying to help you get what you're trying to get to. And if I can start doing that in my classroom with my content, format, context, whatever it may be. I mean,
Right.
I was thinking back as I was prepping for this talk, how many principals I have gone through in my 20 plus years. And one of my first principal, my very first principal, he was awesome. And he used to say, because we had these states assessment, he's like, I don't care what your content is, but if you can do something in your content to help prep these kids to do well format wise in the state
Mm.
assessment, so then it's not anything that's like foreign to them. So that's one thing I've tried to do, and I've tried to reach out to the English department, the history department.
Right.
How can we connect? Where can we, help each other out? That's huge, because then when the kids see the connection between their Spanish class and their history class
Mm.
or their math class, I mean, I think kids will say, "Oh my gosh, Senor Braun, the AP World History question was about the Aztecs or something
Right.
like that," and those
Oh.
connections are huge. Yeah, and so a lot of times I
Mm.
think we close ourselves off. Yes, we feel lonely, but then you kind of have to extend that, reach
Mm.
out and say, I know. And if they bite, great. If they don't, well, then you know where you are. But making
Yeah.
those connections, I think, is huge. Then you don't feel so isolated.
Right. Well, I
You
think,
feel part of the big
I think
picture.
about teaching, and yeah, it's like, right. It's partly like teaching is like an abusive relationship in some ways. It sort of gaslights you. It's like, oh, here comes the dog. You had one job. Okay. Hashtag marriage. I mean, this is the second time in 4 days. Can we, what are we, guys? I'm on the Major's looking like, have I screwed up? No, dude, but like, if you bark, that's it. We
Oh
use,
my God.
he just wandered out. He was like, man, goodbye. Michael's like in the bathroom or something. How dare he? How dare he go to the restroom? He's gonna kill me. Anyway, uh, webinars are
Allegedly.
over. No, I'm kidding. But we use, we use all these, we use all this language when we talk about teaching. We use like war verbiage. We say front lines, trenches, veteran. I said in my little thing, I'm like,
Yeah.
teaching veteran, and then I'm like, oh God, like that feels like kind of intense.
Well, sometimes
But
it feels like you're really in the trenches.
literally
It
every day we're
does.
like, like suiting up. I was telling Marty before, before we got on, that like this year has been a lot, but I think back to, previous years when my husband, who I can literally just hear flush the toilet, he was totally in the bathroom. He's gonna kill me. He's like, I left the dog for 1 second. Actually, like in my teaching career, when he comes in, everybody act cool, act cool. In my teaching career has been on 3 deployments. And so there would be entire
Yeah.
years, and he always scheduled them. And I feel like he did this on purpose. He would leave, he would deploy like in June and then be back like in May. And I was like, just for the school
How
year.
convenient.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How convenient when I need support the most, and a vacation. Here he comes. Cool. Hello. Hi, still on. Don't say anything. We'll move right along. Haven't talked about you.
And while you're talking, there's some great things in the chat. I'm sorry because I'm old and
Oh,
I'm
please.
blind.
Yes.
But all of you amazing literature teachers that are talking about trying to teach some of these things, like you said, Maria Rojas as sophomores, absolutely. Bernarda Alba. Oh, yeah.
I didn't understand Bernarda Alba in college.
Oh, I love it.
I was like,
so good.
seems like words.
But yeah,
like
yeah,
crazy.
I agree.
Yeah, no, all of it.
Yay,
I
Virgos.
didn't
Another
know the
Virgo.
sophomores could take that class.
Yeah.
Insane.
Well, and it happens because we have, we have some heritage speakers and native speakers, but we also have all those kids that do the dual language. So yeah, that's a
Mm,
challenge.
mm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah,
No,
you
that's
were
all.
saying
Well,
that.
that's okay because I mean, I think the coast was clear. No, what is it in Spanish? No hay moros en la costa or something. You know, it's
No hay
like,
moros, no hay moros en la costa.
yeah, like no hay
Some Toy
nadie.
Story.
All good. Everything's fine. When the series abruptly ends, you'll know why. No, I'm kidding. But we use all this strong verbiage of, yeah, I mean, because it's like we have to love teaching when it doesn't love us back. And I find very often it doesn't love us back. And you have to like keep pushing forward no matter what it is. Those videos, everybody shares those feel good videos when somebody retires. And it's like 60 people, in a library, like in a media center somewhere, like,
Yeah.
and I'm going like with cupcakes and the person's like, oh my God, like delighted. That's a nice video. But 60, that person's been teaching like 800 years. Like that person,
Exactly.
it's somebody who's been teaching their entire adult life, 40 years. And they're sick. I think if we're waiting for it to be what we think we should, if we're waiting to get out what we put in, I think we're going to be waiting a while. And it's really nice to hear you, who I know is awesome, acknowledge that professional evolution and that personal evolution, because it would be really easy. Like this experience has made a lot of people go, I'm out, I'm done, goodbye. And it is a lot, but then
it is a lot.
Comparing it to before, I think it's interesting to reflect on why this experience is a lot. You were saying like before you guys were already one-to-one and that made a difference. We were not, also made a difference, but I think yours was a good difference. Ours was like a complete deficit difference. Like kids didn't know our learning management system at all. Neither did teachers.
Yeah, that was a scary situation. It was scary for a lot of people, even in our own town, because, in New Braunfels, for those of you who don't know, New Braunfels is a community that's right in between, it's on the I-35 corridor in between San Antonio and Austin. And so we have two school districts, and our school district was already a one-to-one district. So for many years, our kids have had iPads. We've been one-to-one for a long time. And so when we had to go into quarantine, it was a kind of a hiccup, but for the most part, we were ready. We were ready day one because we had learning management systems. We had ways to, deploy things to kiddos. And even on the elementary level, they were able to deploy them to kids. But the other district across town didn't. And we had last year a sophomore who was at the other district. And so we had to figure out, we literally waited a couple of weeks, and I don't know how it was for y'all, but there was a lag time.
Yeah.
The quarantine happened right after our spring break. So
oh wow.
There was a lag time of our kids not getting anything, what's happening? What are y'all doing? My boy has 4 AP exams in a month or two. So what are you going to do for my boy? So I can't even imagine what it was like for schools trying to figure out what to do. So we were very fortunate. We're very, very lucky. Our district, we were reminiscing today at lunch, Braun and I, about how we started teaching, both of us started teaching when we had the drop down labs. They would drop down from the ceiling. And
I'm getting one in like a month.
Remember that?
Yes, like a brand spanking new one.
Yeah. But we had cassette tapes, and we've gone through the evolution, and we've always tried in our department to try to be on, one step ahead of and I'll never forget, I said something to my kids today, and I said, oh, I have to remember to say that to Meredith tonight, because it was something that I brought up and they had no clue what I was talking about. And so we used to practice. Yeah. And we used to practice with the little things would calm down, and the kids would put the earphones on. And then you had mission control, and it had these little cassette tapes that you'd put in and you could listen in. And then we went into like, oh, we all have our own little boom box, and you can put in a cassette tape and practice recording for AP. And then we went to CDs, and we're going to burn it onto a CD. And then it went, it just got digital. But we've been very lucky that we've been able to have that technology ahead of the time. So, but it's just the trajectory of it. I think that as you get older, I've always kind of stayed in the same age. I just don't feel like I've gotten older.
Right.
My body tells me otherwise. But literally, as I was prepping for this talk, I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this a long time. And,
Mhm.
it's been a lot. I'll never forget the first time that I took a group into the library to practice for the AP exam, and I gave them a cassette tape.
Mhm.
They didn't know what it was.
Yeah, no.
I mean, they didn't know what it was. And I'm like, oh, you guys have never seen this before, And so, yeah, so it's something. But
Well, and I remember when so for context, we were saying before we got on, going through memories. And so I took 1 and 2 with you. And then I didn't
uh-huh.
have, so this is kind of a funny, like a strange, I don't even know if you're aware of this. I was not encouraged to take language my freshman year. And for
Mm-hmm.
the same reason that it happens at my school, it's happened at every school that I've been at, where, oh, ninth graders don't do well in language. And again, like some of your own colleagues aren't supporters of your program, like you said with
Right.
admin. And so I was discouraged my freshman year. And so I didn't take it with you until sophomore year. And
Yeah.
so then, I mean, literally the second week of school, I was like, well, I know what I'm doing the rest of my life,
Oh.
period. Like, I remember looking around, there was like who's the guy with it was like it wasn't a Mana poster, but it was like, shoot, it'll come to me.
Okay.
That poster,
On
and I
my
remember I was
wall.
just like, this is awesome. Like I remember like looking around like, this is super cool. I love everything about this. Like this experience is amazing. But I did not have room for AP because I had level 1 sophomore year, level 2 junior year, and then level 3 is all I was going to have room for senior year. And so as we were remembering, I was like your TA, and you like scooted me the tapes and like the workbook, and so I'd be over there like at your desk like studying stuff
Mm-hmm.
going, what's conditional, and you'd be like, would. I
Would.
was like, thanks, because
Got
that was when the AP test it listed the tenses. It was like
Right.
in the
Yeah.
directions, it said use this and this and I was like,
Right.
I don't know what these mean. And you were like, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
know them yet. I was like, great, I will learn them. Thank you. And I think that's, we don't know so many times, again, those young teachers, those inexperienced teachers or whatever, get in the lower levels. And then there are people who can't wait to get to the upper levels, like, oh, get me out of there, get me out of that 1 and 2. And that's kind of unfortunate because 1 and 2
Yeah.
might be where you spark
The one that
somebody,
hooks you. Yeah.
yeah, where it hits you instead of
Yeah.
saving all the good stuff till like
Mhm.
wait till they take AP. That's when we take our big trip, or that's when we
Yeah.
do this big thing. There,
Mhm.
what can there be big things before that? Because if it were AP,
Absolutely.
I never would have, like you guys. I think we're still going to the library at UT, maybe, or like whatever
Yeah,
that
we
was.
still, yeah,
No, I never got to
didn't
go
get
on
to
that.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, because that wasn't a thing, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
that would have been
Yeah.
cool, but
Awesome. Yeah.
you know,
And we've been doing it forever. We didn't get to do it last year because of COVID, obviously. But yeah, it's
mhm,
always been a tradition that, and Edwin started it. And you guys who don't know who Braun or Edwin is, but he was my um, co-teacher and partner in teaching forever. And now he's my partner in life. So,
yay! And
so
now he
that's
has
why we
reading
were sort
glasses,
of,
and he's super intense.
but he started it to where so for those of you that teach AP language, anybody on the call that teaches AP language, one thing that we would do in the spring is that we would assign an author of a short story of Realismo Mágico. So that way, for their final project after the AP exam, but we would go to the UT library because in Austin, University of Texas has the largest Latin American collection at the Benson Library. So we
Right.
would take the kids to research their author and research their story and literary analysis. And then they would put it away and then we get to prepping for the exam. And then after the exam, because the AP language exam is always kind of early in May, then
Mhm.
they would do their final project. And that would help a lot for those kids that were going on to AP literature, because then they would have some kind of knowledge or, a little understanding of some of those
Right.
readings and authors. But it was so great because it gave kids, because those classes were so mixed between non-natives and native speakers or heritage speakers. I remember walking, and I know Nancy will agree to this. We would walk the campus, and there would be kids who never thought about possibly going to college,
Mm.
and walking the campus and going, so this is what it's like. And we're
This is
going,
college.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you could do this,
Mhm.
and you're going to get such a great score on your test that you'll already have credit at this place, And so, those are great moments that are just, yeah, they're awesome.
Nancy
Um,
says there was karaoke on the bus, and now I'm upset 20 years after the fact that I missed out on
yeah.
karaoke.
Oh yeah, Barajas always made it right. Yeah, she always, and
Oh,
our kids are always, and
God.
that's one of the things is, the camaraderie. I know that listening to your talks, the last couple of weeks, I am just like so impressed with the camaraderie and the alignment of, just that feel of they're your people. You're
Yeah.
always gonna have in every department we were talking about, you're always gonna have those people that are just like not doing it, gonna do the bare minimum. But
Yep.
if you can find those people that are with you, like I see you, I get you, and
Yep.
let's do this.
Yeah.
And
Well, and even
yeah,
like how it evolves year to year. There might be a year where you're like, we talk about having an off day, but then, it's like real talk or an off week, month, semester, year.
year, yeah,
Like you and I
yeah,
have talked
yeah.
about like, wow, that was a long year. It's like that thing of like Tuesday, you're like, whew, long week. Meredith, it's
Yeah.
Tuesday.
It's
Oh,
Tuesday, yes,
great. Like
exactly.
that's how I feel like in May. Sometimes I've had a couple years in really dysfunctional, toxic departments
Hmm.
where it's been like just
Yeah.
one toxic department for a few years that
Yes.
was like, wow, this is a lot. And like the year, I mean, you're just like walking through mud
Yeah.
and it's really hard, but you got to find you got to find the moments even in that situation, or like you said, like find like one or two people that make
Hmm.
you feel like, no, this is okay, you're doing a good job,
It's
and
okay. Yeah.
you're not wrong, and you're not, and it's okay to have
Mm-mm.
an off week or a
Yeah.
whatever, and it's fine. Like
Yeah.
even
I mean, that year that you had a rough year, the mama bear in me wanted to go and like, I wanted to take my earrings off and say,
right.
what,
And
do
another
you
thing,
know,
right?
do you know who this kid is? You were so like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that we struggle with. You're always going to have those that are just, we talked about it before we got on the call. What was it? The quote that somebody said, the workers are
Oh,
going to work. Yeah.
Adrian, yeah, like casually in July spoke like, I mean, true. She said, well, workers are going to work, lazies are going to laze. And I was like, oh my God. She was talking about students, like, but it also applies to adults. I mean, no one's
Yeah.
changed their behavior in this experience. Those of us who work our
No.
asses off, like I know I'm recording, so
Hmm.
I'm gonna say ass.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
of us who
Hmm.
work our asses off are still working, and we're like, oh my God, I'm still not enough. I'll never be enough. This will never be enough. And people who like didn't care before are like, nah, it'll be okay.
Yeah, they're good. And
We're
that's
good.
one, if there was one takeaway, is, and we were talking about this before too, is that if you're on this call, it's because you love what you do and you care about what you do. You care about kids, you care
Mm,
about, you get excited about what you're teaching. But you also have to remember to be good to yourself.
yeah.
Take it from somebody who's done this for a long time. You need to find that balance, because I
Mhm.
remember those years when I was very young and everything had to be perfect, and I'd get defensive. I'd get defensive with kids. We talked about this last week of like, I worked so hard on this and you're not getting this.
Mm,
um, you just have to take a breath, but you have to remember to be good to yourself. All of us, not just in this crazy year, but just take it a day at a time, be
mm,
good to yourself. It's just so important, because we were talking about how a lot of people really get upset. And I know that I'm speaking because I've done this for so long, but Meredith and I were saying, when I get my evaluation report or I get a walkthrough, I don't know how y'all do it in your district, but we get walkthroughs and, you know, sure,
drive-bys.
whatever. If because I know, you guys that are on this call, how hard you work. And some people still get upset about, well, they said I was in the teacher position and I wasn't on the lecture position and I
Mhm.
wasn't in the power zone or blah, blah, blah. So what?
Power
They don't know
zone?
your life.
Should
Yeah.
I
Oh
be in
yeah.
the
We
power zone?
yeah, there's something called the fundamental five. I think that's what it is, right? I don't
Oh,
know. But
Google
you
that
have to be in the
immediately.
power zone, and you have to, there's always there's some other new lingo, right? That
Right,
your
right.
administrators are going to use. And if you've been a language teacher, I don't know, what is it called? Walkyria, Nancy, help me out here. What is it where they pair talk, meaningful talk or whatever. I
Oh,
don't know what the title is.
I
If
hate it
you're a
already.
true language teacher, you do that every day.
Right, right.
We pair up and we do that. That's
Oh,
interpersonal, but they,
Jennifer's
so
like purposeful small group
purposeful.
talk.
Thank you, Jennifer Bliss. Hey, Bliss is in the house. That's our German teacher. Oh, I'm so happy to see you, Bliss.
Whoop, whoop.
Whee!
Oh, Jennifer,
Yeah,
sorry if you got
purpose.
the email 4 times. I realized your email was on there 4 times after I sent it twice. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
like it's and so you have to. there's this thing about checklists and it's because we're doers and we want to do well. If you're here, you want to do well. And there's something about having pride in what you do and feeling like you've accomplished something. But in the end game, take it from this old lady who's, you know, literally counting down, okay, when does TRS kick in? And not that I'm saying I'm going to retire when I'm eligible, because if things keep going as they're going, I'm going to do this as long as I can. But in the grand scheme of things, what that administrator said about you, when that person they taught math, you're going to worry about what they said about how you're doing your job. Blow it off. You know, that's just sure, fine, whatever. You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to, you know, there are people, when you know for a fact that there are people on your campus that don't do anything and they're still there. So no, enjoy your time with your kids. Yeah, enjoy your time with your kids. Make those relationships. And the beautiful thing about our subject is that you can connect it. It doesn't matter. You know, there's sometimes where you guys, I'm sure, have all had that situation where, oh, we got Senora off topic. We just talked all period long, right? I'm like, dude, you don't think I wanted to do that? You don't think I needed a break? You know, and I tell them, you don't think I needed a break? You don't think I wanted to have this conversation? But it's having that building. And so you teach them a few words, you can connect it.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You know, just don't. You know your stuff, you know your content, you know your kids. My goodness. You know, we could have a whole nother conversation about what a counselor tells you or an admin tells you about a kid. You know your kids.
Right.
You know, and so yeah, just you do you. And yeah, you got it. That's all you need to focus on. Don't let some piece of paper or some evaluation validate who you are.
Yeah. Well, and I even think back to that, like I said, that environment that was really negative for me. And when I reflect, you know, I could have done more. I could have advocated for myself, but it caught me so off guard. It really caught me off guard. And I was like, wait, like you said, I felt like I knew, like, no, I know what I'm doing. This is okay. You know, at worst, it's like maybe mediocre, but I think it's okay. I think it's pretty okay some days. And, you know, I could have been more reflective. I needed to definitely not, I internalized it big time, and I should.
But it's normal. It's totally normal for where you are in your life. It's totally normal. I'm almost 50 years old, so I can say, sure, whatever, you know. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not, and I know that when I was younger, man, I would get into it with some girls in class, or, you know, I'm like, you little, you roll your eyes at me, and, you know, and that stuff that you have to learn. You have to learn that, okay. And so, and Nancy will laugh at me about this too, because Nancy's like, oh, no, you know. My sister from Chicago is not putting up with that, right? And I'll be like, Nancy, it's okay.
I'm like, Nancy, let it go. And she's like,
no, not happening.
That's so funny.
And
I remember. Go ahead.
No, but it's kind of, I've learned to evolve. One thing for me is that I always stressed out about the really smart kids, okay? Because you have to accept the fact, and some of you may be super brilliant. I'm not. Everything that I've learned, you know, I learned by teaching. You know, when you teach something, what is it? The brain learns 90% of what it teaches. So yeah, it's easy to like fill out I'm not some super academic person, but I love what I get to do, and I love learning with the kids. And that's another thing, is that you have to, especially when you're teaching higher levels or even the lower levels, is to let the kids know you're not going to know everything. You know, you've got to figure it out. I don't know, look it up. That's a good question. You know, don't try to have that I am, you know, all knowing, and they're going to try to stump you, right? But for me, dealing with the really smart kids, because I have the brightest of the brights, you know, like, oh my God, they're so smart, you know? And so, and some of them are kind. Some of them are so kind, and they want to learn, like you know, Meredith's like, oh, you know, you're brilliant. No, teach me more.
Every day without fail.
But then there are others that look at you like, this lady does not know what she's talking about. So I had to learn to let go of that defensiveness with those really smart kids that are just dry. They're just, and so I had to let that go, because for many years I'd be like, this little, he
Right.
wants to try to stump me and I'm not gonna, and
Right.
so you have to let that go. And I learned that when I started to have our kid, who is pretty darn smart, and he's really serious,
Mm.
and he's a good boy. He's a sweet boy, but just because he looks at you like, I'm not gonna get excited, literally.
He's like Braun.
Right. He's like his dad, and he's processing it, he's processing. So now when I see kids like
Oh,
that, I'm thinking, oh, they're processing, or, I'm just going to try to pump them up when I can.
right.
Um,
Right.
but before, I used to get really defensive. Like,
Mm.
what
That's
does he
so
think he is?
true. And I'm not
And
thinking
you
of
have to
him.
let that go.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's so true. I've had that. I think Joe, who's on the call, and I have had that conversation the last few years. You and he have in common, I believe, you've only ever taught at the same school. And so having that really cool, like, sort of legacy of experience and like in your repertoire, being able to speak to all these different things, um, having like either in your maturity or in your evolution as an adult or a teacher or whatever that thing is of like
Hmm.
there's a point where you're like they're 15, like
Hmm.
why am I crying in my car again that some 15-year-old girl
Yes.
made some comment on my outfit? She wears
Hmm.
the same hoodie every
Every
day,
day.
girl.
Yeah. Hmm.
Bye. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Aeropostale is not it, honey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I look awesome, so like
Exactly.
yeah, like
Yeah.
why was I letting that bother me? Now it's so silly, but yeah, like you said,
But
kids who are just
it's
like
normal.
staring, and especially now, like if it's like black screens or whatever, I don't care about that. But like, it's just
Yeah.
not the hill I'm gonna die on. But like the kids, the roomies, what has thrown me off about this whole experience is not the
Hmm.
zoomies. I'm like, good morning, zoomies. I can be freaking Dora the Explorer and answer my own crap all day long, whatever, don't care. I'll be Mr. Rogers, I'll be Bob Ross, like we're painting, we're tiny Spanish,
Spanish,
whatever.
yeah.
But the
Mhm.
roomies, like,
Mhm.
don't even say hi, don't even say goodbye. Some of them don't do any work. They're just sitting there, and I'm like, hey, Janine, you logged in? You good?
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like, hasn't logged in since December 16th. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Janine, you're not
Yeah.
good. Janine,
You're not there.
Mayday.
Are you?
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's been really disconcerting because, like you said, it's like either they're serious or they're whatever. And it's like half their face,
Mhm.
it's like, and then if they're wearing like a hat or something, it's like you can
Mhm.
only, with the mask and
Yeah.
everything, I'm going like, hello, are you
Yeah.
okay? Am I reading you wrong?
Yeah.
I've had to let that go.
Yeah. You have to let it go. And I know we've talked about this last week too, is when you see them in the cafeteria while they're
Mm,
eating and they don't have their mask on, it's like,
yes.
oh,
Oh,
hi.
hi, how are you? Yeah, right.
I'll be on duty and I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Hi, and that's just
Mm,
so hard. And so I tell them that. You got to tell them what you're feeling. You're like, guys,
mm,
I know this is hard. I know
mm,
this is hard, and I just wish I could see your faces. And I feel like I'm having to justify myself all the time. I think we talked about this before too.
yes.
And so kids that I've had before, I'm like, you guys know I don't teach like this. This is not me. Vouch for
Guys.
me, please. And the kids that don't know you, they're new, like, I'm used to being in it. I'm used to being
Yes.
in it, and we're moving around and we're all over. And
Mm,
this teaching from, just because of my health concerns, I have to, like, I got plexiglass and
right.
I got, this, and like,
Hmm.
leave me alone.
Right.
And so
Stay
that,
back.
yeah. But I think that this year, and I was just thinking, I was looking back at, as I was planning for the week, I pulled up last year's course and I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally a unit behind where I was
Right.
last year. And I'm going, well, yeah, you only see them every other day. And,
Right.
and you're having to make up for the months that you didn't teach, they didn't get anything
Mm,
taught to them last year.
that's true.
So you're okay. You're good. It's
Right.
all good,
It's
and
it's the previous level point 0.5, like whatever.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And make those relationships, because right now, and my mom, who's a retired teacher, she said, Bonnie, I like, gosh, mom, the kids are so grumpy. They are
Mm.
so grumpy. And they're thinking, and she's like, well, you don't know what they're going through. And you're like, I don't.
Dang it, mom. Dang it, Mary Padilla. How dare you?
Mary Padilla brought me back to reality. And so then
Oh,
literally Friday, and I know it was somebody in this group, I don't know who it was, but gave me that great idea. Somebody posted it like, today we're in Starbucks mode. What is it like?
oh, that's right. Yeah,
Put your
like cafe mode or whatever. Yeah.
cafe mode. We're in cafe mode. You can sit wherever you want. listen to your music. I put
Yeah.
on some chill, like if you're in a cafe, and they just needed that,
Mhm.
And I told them, I always tell my kids, you get a siesta every semester because it is a cultural activity. And they're like, there was one, yeah, is it our siesta day? I was like, dude, I haven't had my walkthrough this week, but as soon as I have my walkthrough, it's on.
Right.
So Friday was
Siesta it up.
Siesta Cafe because I got my walkthrough. Because that admin stuff, and I have family in admin. I know what that's all about, and so, but yeah, the kids, it's about the relationship because then the kids will step it up for you when they need to. And I'm not telling just go, because I have seen where teachers just do that all the time.
Right.
And that's not what we want to go for. But when it's time to step it up, they'll step it up.
Yeah.
And you have to accept those days where the kids are just not in it. And it's okay. It has nothing to do with you. You don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know what's going on in their heads. You just have to let it go. And
so
and that's just kind of in life. You just got to let it go. It's not their journey. It's not, everybody's on their journey. And I think as teachers, we want to fix everybody. We want to help everybody. We want to make it all right. And so you just have to remember, it's hard because it breaks your heart sometimes, but you just have to remember everybody's on their journey, and you've got to do you.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm learning just as an adult about life in general. It's hard to kind of separate that. And yeah.
I think I had a principle that I reflect on often as we wrap it up here, that would say, and I didn't always agree with all the things, who does, right? With all the things he did or whatever. But if you took something to him and you said, I'm really concerned, this, that, and this are happening and whatever. And I was told, he would say, by whom? Not because he was gossipy or like because he was like, well, who said that? But different people's opinion hold different weight. And I remember thinking like, oh, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to not be upset like by the eye roll from the girl in third period who really like isn't nice to anybody, or
exactly.
I mean, like, or the colleague who you're like, oh, kind of grumpy, or like, your mom reminded like, well, you don't know what people are going through. I know. We're working really
so hard on this.
This is trying the hard. This is all I have. Like even ineffective teaching is exhausting. That's the thing. Like nobody ever talks about is like, no, like if Kelly were to say, because Kelly and I are friends, I feel like I can use her name. If she were to say like, I'm having a really bad year, or if I were to say like, no, this like isn't going well. Like I'm not, it's like, she might say, oh, I'm sure you're great. But if you're like, no, really, like, I know this is not good, or whatever it is, even that's exhausting. And I think that's where teaching gets you too, is you're like, well, I'll be lazy. I'll cut some corners. And then that not only feels crappy, but like, then it makes your job harder. Like being inefficient and ineffective is like, the same way being gone is more work. Like all of it's like crazy like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yay. Okay, so we meshed into the after party here, but I super appreciate everybody who didn't abandon us as we went.
Thank you guys so much. I mean, we could go on forever. Meredith and I could talk forever, and thank you for hanging out. And I want to go back now and look at all of the, I didn't have, because I'm not as savvy as you are to be able to see what's going on. Like Meredith's able to talk and chat at the same time. I'm like, seriously?
It's because I'm so used to lying to the students all day. There's nothing in the chat. There is zero activity in the chat to me. And all day I'm like, oh, Adriana, muchas gracias. Danielle, fantástico. I'm lying. I'm making up student names all day. If they looked at the participant list, they'd be like, ain't no Nancy. Like, there's no Walkiria. And I'm like, Walkiria, buena idea. And I'm like, I'm answering my own. I am Dora. Whatever. I'll pause, answer. I'm like, extra credito. Nobody in the chat. I'm like, oh, extra credito. Good job, Amy. No, Amy.
No, the whole thing about like, I'll ask the kids a question. I'll literally, and now it's like, I'm sure you feel it too with your roomies. I'll ask the Zoomies, and I'm like, I think today was, ¿prefieres invierno o primavera? Because Claudia Elliott, shout out to Claudia Elliott, man, her calendar chat
is amazing.
Her calendar chat for the winter saved my life this week. She's amazing. and I'm like, oh my God, I got prácticas and I got perspectivas. She's amazing.
She's
Y'all
great.
are all amazing. You guys have no idea how much you have saved me.
Oh,
And
she's
so yeah,
incredible.
but and Meredith, with all the stuff you share, you're just like, take it, take it, take it, take it. I'm
I
like,
guarantee quantity, not quality. It's
it's
like,
amazing.
take it
Yeah,
all,
no.
make it better, send it back.
That's great.
Please, I beg of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
Claudia is
no.
amazing.
So,
No, I just make up stuff
well,
in the
but
chat. Literally, people like roomies. I taught one kid Bakan. Like, I've never even used Bakan. Anyway, whatever. He was asking different ways to say cool, and we were like, guay, chévere,
bye,
Bakan,
Kevin. Yep.
whatever. That's literally the only word he knows. So it's a roomie. He comes in every day. I'm like, hola, Javier. And he's like, Bakan. And then he sits down and like gets out his computer, whatever, and then goes back to like
That's
TikTok.
okay.
And then whatever, Bakan.
But that's okay, because he will remember that. He will remember how you made him feel. He's going to remember the experience, because I guarantee you that, and I know I get this from a lot of my kids, is that in their other classes, some of those teachers don't even say hello. Some of those teachers just
Literally
sit down, listen to my lecture, and Spanish is a class where they were acknowledged, even it was,
right.
they were allowed
In
to
the
shout
before
out
times.
Bakan.
In the before times, people were doing this. Like in the before
Yeah.
COVID, people were like,
Yeah.
sit down, shut up, get her. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like, is
Yeah.
this, like you said, why are we ever worried about our job? I used to worry about my job. I would worry like, oh, I said damn in class and I stubbed my toe and I didn't mean to. There are literally people who don't do anything. Like, unpopular opinion, you've all got a face in your head right now who you're picturing. You're like, that person. And maybe it's been us. Like, that's the fair thing, is like, we've all had a week where we're like, oof, that did not go well, or I dropped the ball, whatever. But people have like entire years like that.
Years. That's just how they function. Yeah. And I tell my kids at the beginning of the year, as part of the whole, like, this is how we roll. It's always like, look, I don't need to know your whole story, but because my main thing is respect, right? You respect each other. And so I'm always at the door to greet you, or I'm always somewhere to greet you. If you are not feeling it today, you just tell me, I'm not feeling it today. I work. I don't need to know the whole story, but I have kids that work. Like, I've got a kid right now that works at Whataburger till midnight every night. And so luckily our district, if they even if they don't come to school, if they hop on the Zoom, they get attendance credit, which I think is great, because some of these kids, they're there, they're doing their deal, And so making that connection, and just tell me I'm not feeling well. So then I know you're not being disrespectful. You're just not feeling it. Right. And so, but vice versa, there'll be days when I'm not feeling it. And I say, hey guys, remember when I told y'all today's the day? So if I got a nasty look on my face, or it's not personal, it's not you, it's me. I don't feel well. I love you, but this is what we're going to do. So.
Yeah. Well, and our job's so personal in that way that I said today, I tweeted out like what I was showing as my screen tomorrow, because I think we don't, I think as teachers, a lot of times we let things fester and we don't like address them, or we don't tell kids. We just think, obviously I'm working hard. And then when they say, like they said to my colleague, what are, like, who was like you behind, we all are right behind plexiglass. We're like right here, like everything's fine. If I could type with my toes, I would be, because we need to, like, it's like 3 computers, whatever. And they said, just casually, I think jokingly, but it like really hit a nerve with her. What are you doing over there? Just online shopping? And she was like, are you effing kidding me? Because she's like, I'm giving you live feedback. You're watching me record like audios going like, muy bien, Danielle. Entonces, Joe, fantastic.
It's documented. Yeah.
It's right. Like, it looks like NASA over here, and I'm not ignoring you. I just can't like talk to you. Yeah. So she really took that personally. And I thought, that's true. They literally have no idea. So I'm always like, these days now, like since she shared that a few weeks ago, each day I'm like, okay, you're working independently. I'm going to mute myself, but I'm here. I'm going to put on some music. We've got 30 minutes left, because we have 90-minute blocks, like you guys, I assume still do. And so on. So like, we're not going to work, like, we're not going to be live
100%,
90 minutes, but we'll be on for an hour or whatever, maybe, if that. And then you're working. Here's what I'm doing. I'm answering your emails, and by the end of this class period, my goal is that you have comments in Go
Right.
Formative and that you have feedback,
Right.
you know, whatever. And they're like, oh,
Right.
okay, cool. And I try really
Cool.
hard to do that because otherwise those little
Yeah.
comments, like
Yeah.
they just
Dang.
off
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
I go like 0 to 60. I'm like, are you serious right now?
Yeah. How dare you?
How dare
Yeah.
you? We all need like
Yeah.
Mary
Yeah.
Padilla. We need your mom.
How
Like,
dare you?
you
Yeah.
don't know what they're going through. Like,
No, what I'm like, no, yeah. And so that happened to me today. Not, I didn't get a nasty comment, but I've got my roomies and my zoomies. And then, like you said, when they're working independently, it's music time, right?
Mm,
So sometimes, and they don't speak up. If they would say something, then
right.
maybe I'd hear them that they have a comment or question. But they just type it in the chat. Like I'm just staring at the chat, waiting for them
Like,
to,
I'm right here.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm looking over here and I'm like you said, doing all these things. And I look later on and she said, oh, are we writing the sentences now? And then she left the meet.
Yes.
And so I wrote her a little, message in Canvas saying, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't see your comment, but you didn't say anything. But yeah, that's what we were doing. Oh, and then, I got back but it wasn't nasty, like, your online shopping
Right.
comment, but still, it's like,
Oh.
seriously, guys, you cannot understand that. And it may be that in other classes that they're just totally remote, because there are teachers that, there maybe have some class periods where it's totally remote. So they are used to having all that attention on them.
Right.
But in a hybrid class, I'm like, guys, if you don't speak up, I'm not going to hear you.
Right.
So, yeah.
I can't hear you and I can't read your mind. And like,
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
I've got a roomie that emails me like, can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to see lunch? I'm like, and I'm not kidding you when I say he's right here,
Right there.
20 feet away. I'm like, Damien, you can just say it out loud. And he'll go like,
Okay.
I'm like, are you nodding? I can't see. I don't know what you're doing. And he's just like, okay.
Oh my
Like,
God.
this is so weird. And like you said, I have a disclaimer. I'm like, guys, I'm normally, and I find like
This is not me.
This is not me. And they're
Defending
like,
myself. Yeah.
right. They're like,
Yeah.
isn't it though? I'm like, no, it's me, right? Your other teachers do it too, right? Every class is like study hall, right? Like I'm not, because it's like Spanish study hall. I am the Spanish study hall teacher.
Yeah,
It's
you
silent.
named it. I mean, that was perfect. I mean, COVID teaching is Spanish study hall, and it's okay.
Yep.
It's hard for us because we're not used to that. We're the ones that are in it, and we're in it. We're in between the desks, and we're jumping around, and we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so it's just hard, but you just have to take a breath and say, it's all good. Because I guarantee you that even our Spanish study hall is way more interactive than chemistry.
Oh, 100%.
Or AP World, that there's a teacher just sitting there. And I get after him sometimes. I was like, dude, and I get after him. I was like, come on, man. I know that in the other classes, you're just sitting there taking lecture for 90 minutes. And I'm trying to, like, behind my plexiglass, trying to do something, and you're not giving me anything. What the heck,
Heck, man.
And they're like, well, yeah, I guess that's true. But, it's all good. We do what we can.
I got a line from Danielle, actually. Danielle, it's probably been, who's on here. What year are we in? 21. It's probably been 8 or maybe it was a photo you posted. Now I can't remember if it was like real life. We experienced it when we worked together, or if you posted it, but it was like a kid in a skit. Danielle teaches Latin and now Spanish, ? Yes. Bienvenida. And so like it was like a skit or something. And it was like a quiet kid who like had a script or had lines, but like their only lines were just holding up a sign that said screaming internally. And that made me laugh so hard. And now like I use that line probably every day, because I'm like looking at the roomies going, you don't look sad or mad or like you're screaming internally, but if you are, you have to let me know, because they're just sitting there like, with 40% of their face covered. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back behind the glass now. So just let me know. And I'm like maybe off into the distance, and they're like, okay, like over their computers. Super weird, but I'll never forget how hard I laughed at that. And I was like, that's exactly it. We forget how many situations we put students in that make them scream internally. And we just, in the name of school, stand up and do a presentation, stand up and do this, even emailing your teacher and being like, sorry, I was late. It takes guts. Like it takes guts to like email somebody who's like in charge of some stuff from you and be like, I screwed up. And is there anything I can do? And as teachers, so often, then we're Goldilocks. It's like the email's not nice enough. The email's too snarky. There's never any like medium temperature porridge. Oh, I posted everything a week ahead and Kelly went in and did all the work early. But then if they do it late, these freaking kids, they do all the work late. Well, you don't want them to do it early and you don't want them to do it late. I want them to do it on my schedule. Like, it's super unfair.
But they are soft skills that we have to teach them. So
Right.
you have to kind of like, I've had to like, just like we do with people, got to tell it to them in a softer way. And one thing I used a couple years ago, you shared that slide that you give to your kids about before you send that email. Make sure you remember that. Yeah. And so what I did is I said, okay, and I like turned it around. I said, so since you're an honors course and we're prepping for those AP tasks, one of the AP tasks is to write an email, a formal email. So then you connect it. So then it's not so much as like, y'all suck. You're doing y'all don't know how to, you don't know how to talk to people. Get your crap together. And so it kind of empowered them. It's like, you know that an AP student has to write a formal email. So we start teaching you that interpersonal communication at our level. We're going to start at level 1 and how you write a proper email.
I love that.
Right? Because this is what the varsity kids have to do. Right? So if you may not go to varsity because you're like, that's not my goal, but I'm going to prep you as if you are. And then later on in the future, whatever job you have, so then you kind of empower them. You kind of, just like little children, try to get them to eat something that they don't want to eat. And so I was able to put those two together. It was perfect. Because then you don't have that battle of like, you don't know how to write an email,
Right.
Because they don't.
And it's not helping anything.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to be like, kids these days. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. Find me employees that don't turn in the HR modules late, because I'm one. I turned in like bloodborne pathogens in like October. I'm like, sorry, I didn't do it because I didn't care.
It's like, I didn't get the answers in time, so sorry.
Yeah, right. Sorry, my friends didn't text me the answers to the quiz in pre-planning, so I had to wait. So
yeah.
And then they send 10 reminder emails because that's what people need. And yet as teachers, we're like, well, I told you 2 Tuesdays ago when the moon was full. Whatever.
Teachers are the worst. Teachers are the worst.
We're the worst. We're the worst.
Yeah.
We'll end on that. We've come full circle. Teachers are the worst. And
no. This has been so great. And I love every single session that you do. I'm so proud of you. You know that you are mi orgullo más grande. I am so proud of you. You me inspiras cada día. You inspire me every day. And I just think you are the best. And you're the reason I keep showing up. So I guess I'll show up tomorrow.
Well, listen, you're the reason I started showing up. So we'll just keep showing up together.
High five.
I know it. All right. Juntas siempre. You're not getting rid of me now. Yay.
No,
Gracias por venir. So I'll put the recording
you have
on.
a new house. You can
Shut up. I didn't know y'all moved. I was waiting for Braun to make a cameo because we referred to him like 74 times, but.
No. And when you stop recording, I'm going to tell you something about that.
Oh, I'm super excited. Okay. Intense. Times. Okay. Yay. Thanks,
Thank you guys that stayed around for the whole, us just kind of blabbing and hola aquí a Miss Nancy.
I know. Nancy, no te vayas.
Thank you guys. No te vayas. Thank you. Ay, mi hermanita, I don't want you to go. I miss
Jennifer,
you.
I hoped it was you. I remembered meeting you, and literally when I saw the email, I went, oh God, I hope that was that really nice person that I met, because that name is familiar, and you probably got that email 8 times.
Yeah. Telco Lab. Yes. Oh, my team. I miss you so much.